January 1910. A thin layer of winter fog drifts over a quiet American street as dawn settles across the rooftops. Gas lamps flicker along the sidewalks while horse-drawn wagons rattle like tired bones against the cobblestones. A trolley bell echoes in the distance, cutting through the pale morning cold as women in long skirts step carefully over patches of ice on their way to work. Their breath rises like smoke in the frozen air. Some walk with lunch pails clutched tight beneath heavy wool coats. Others hurry children toward school before heading to their own jobs. For most of them, this day will look almost exactly like yesterday and almost exactly like tomorrow. Because for women in the 1910s, life in America carried a rhythm that was strict, demanding, and filled with expectations shaped long before they were born. This decade stands at the edge of enormous change, yet the women living through it still wake to a world controlled by rules they had little power to challenge, creating a quiet tension that lingers with every step they take into the morning light. America in the 1910s is a nation expanding faster than its own streets can keep up. More than 90 million people fill the country, spread between overcrowded cities and wide rural farmland. Skyscrapers rise like steel promises over New York and Chicago, while mining towns and mill villages carve themselves into the mountains and riverbanks of the nation's interior. Immigration surges, bringing millions from Europe into already packed neighborhoods where tenement walls sag beneath the weight of daily survival. Technology reshapes the land, not with modern convenience but with noise, smoke, and relentless motion. Electricity exists, but only in the wealthier districts. Automobiles appear on the roads, but only a rare few can afford them. Most homes still rely on coal heat, kerosene lamps, and human hands. Factories define the skyline, and their whistles mark the rhythm of life itself. Inside this growing industrial country, women stand at the center of a labor force that pushes the nation forward even as society tries to confine them to its edges. The contrast between economic need and cultural expectation becomes one of the defining pressures of the decade, shaping every part of a woman's day. For millions of women, daily life begins before sunrise. The typical morning starts with heating water over coal stoves, preparing meals, washing children, and scrubbing whatever needs scrubbing before stepping into a world that demands still more labor. In rural America, women carry buckets from wells, milk cows by lantern light, and gather eggs in the blue chill of early morning. In cities, women navigate crowded hallways and narrow staircases inside tenement buildings, where families share bathrooms with 50 or 60 other people. Clothing layers are heavy and time-consuming. Long skirts, petticoats, corsets, blouses, gloves, and hats. The garments are modest and restrictive, limiting stride length and tightening the breath. Every movement is controlled, every gesture shaped by expectations of propriety. Food is simple and repetitive because groceries must be purchased daily, and refrigeration is rare. Even the act of bringing bread home can require standing in long lines with coins pressed in anxious palms. This routine creates a sense of endurance rather than ease, a steady acceptance of the demands placed upon women each day. These demands lead directly into the workplaces that consume much of their lives. Work in the 1910s is not an option for many women. It is a necessity. Factories roar from sunrise until long after dusk, filled mostly with young women earning wages far below even their male coworkers. Textile mills hum with constant vibration. Shirtwaist factories crowd hundreds of women into long rows beneath gas lamps that burn too hot in summer and too dim in winter. Reports from labor inspectors describe rooms with locked doors, dust-filled air, and fire hazards stacked along every wall. In 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York exposes the reality of these workplaces when 146 workers, most of them teenage girls, die within minutes, trapped by doors that had been bolted shut to prevent theft. Their deaths reveal what thousands already endure: dangerous machines, relentless supervisors, and workdays that stretch from early morning to late evening. Beyond factories, women serve as teachers, nurses, telephone operators, domestic maids, laundresses, and clerks. Many work 6 days a week. Their wages often support entire families, especially in immigrant communities where every coin matters. Yet despite their contributions, they rarely control their own income or future, a contradiction that shapes much of the decade's social tension. The unwritten rules of society weigh as heavily as any factory machine. A woman's reputation is guarded like a fragile object that could break at the slightest misstep. Public behavior is closely watched. Voices must remain soft, posture straight, clothing modest, steps measured. Unchaperoned meetings with men invite gossip. Smiles held too long are judged. Even strolling alone in certain neighborhoods at certain hours is considered inappropriate. Newspapers and etiquette manuals instruct women on how to speak, how to gesture, how to host guests, how to express agreement without appearing bold, and how to express disagreement without seeming rude. Churches and social clubs reinforce these expectations, declaring modesty a virtue and independence a threat to the household structure. These pressures create invisible boundaries around women's lives, shaping decisions about work, marriage, and education. Yet beneath these restrictions, a growing determination spreads quietly. Women read newspapers discussing labor rights, suffrage campaigns, and changing laws. They witness progress in the distance, even if their daily routines remain anchored in old expectations. This tension builds steadily as the decade advances, influencing personal decisions inside every household. Marriage in the 1910s is often the center of a woman's adult life, yet it comes with responsibilities far beyond romantic commitment. Housekeeping is a full-time occupation. Laundry scrubbing, water hauling, sewing repairs, mending socks, cleaning coal dust from surfaces, and preparing every meal from scratch. None of it is optional. Childbirth carries serious risks, and maternity hospitals, where they exist, are inconsistent in their cleanliness. Many women give birth at home with midwives because medical care is expensive and uneven. Infant mortality rates remain high. Families lose children to diseases that modern medicine later prevents with simple vaccines. Mothers stay awake through fevers, coughing fits, and long nights with little support. Households rarely have bathrooms inside. Outhouses remain common across rural regions and poorer city neighborhoods. The absence of household appliances means every chore demands physical labor. Washing clothes in tubs, chopping firewood, heating irons on stovetops. These responsibilities shape a life defined by endurance, love, and relentless repetition. Yet even within these demanding routines, many women find small freedoms through education, community groups, and emerging social movements gaining strength across the country. Education opens its doors slowly for girls in the 1910s, but the shift is significant. Public schools expand, and literacy improves across much of the nation. Girls often outperform boys in academic attendance because families expect sons to join the workforce earlier. High schools become more accessible, and a growing number of women attend colleges and teacher training institutions. Women's clubs form in cities and towns, offering lectures on literature, science, and public health. Settlement houses, such as Chicago's Hull House, provide language classes and skills training for immigrant women building new lives in unfamiliar cities. Yet entry into professional fields remains limited. Law schools, medical schools, and engineering programs accept only small numbers of women, and even those who graduate face hiring discrimination. Still, each step forward increases public recognition that women's intellectual abilities are equal to men's, beginning to reshape cultural assumptions that had remained unquestioned for centuries. These changes become visible even in fashion, where function begins to push back against strict form, revealing another layer of societal evolution. Clothing in the 1910s remains rooted in convention, yet it begins to shift. Corsets hold tight around the waist, shaping the body into the preferred silhouette. Long skirts sweep the ground, making movement difficult in mud, snow, and crowded streetcars. Blouses button high at the collar, and gloves are worn even on warm days to maintain propriety. But by the middle of the decade, fashion designers introduce more practical styles, narrower skirts, lighter corsets, and looser blouses. Women working in factories adopt knotted hair and rolled sleeves for safety, challenging traditional ideas of femininity simply by necessity. In rural regions, women adapt clothing to match the demands of labor, favoring sturdy shoes and simple dresses that survive long days of farm work. The emergence of simpler garments signals a subtle rebellion, a quiet shift from appearance to function. These changes reflect deeper transformations in health, hygiene, and public awareness as the new century progresses. Health and hygiene in the 1910s vary widely across America. In wealthy neighborhoods, public sanitation improves, hospitals modernize, and trained nurses guide communities with new standards of cleanliness. But in crowded immigrant districts and rural areas, diseases such as tuberculosis, typhoid, influenza, and pneumonia spread rapidly. Clean water is not guaranteed, and sewage systems lag behind population growth. Women take on the responsibility of illness care, tending to fevers with home remedies, boiling bandages, and keeping families isolated during outbreaks. The emerging field of nursing attracts many women seeking meaningful work, and the profession grows rapidly as hospitals expand. Public health campaigns begin teaching mothers about germ prevention, nutrition, and infant care. These improvements slowly reshape American life, offering hope against the decade's many physical hardships. Yet for millions, especially African American and immigrant women, access to proper health care remains inconsistent, exposing the deep inequalities that structure the decade. For African American women, life in the 1910s is shaped by resilience in the face of systemic discrimination. Jim Crow laws dominate the South, enforcing segregation in schools, hospitals, transportation, and workplaces. Black women work primarily as domestic servants, laundresses, agricultural laborers, and teachers in underfunded schools. They face lower wages than white women and carry the weight of double discrimination. In northern cities, the Great Migration begins as families leave the South to seek factory work and educational opportunities. Yet even in these new environments, segregation persists in housing and employment. Immigrant women from Italy, Ireland, Eastern Europe, and beyond face linguistic barriers and economic struggles. Many live in tenements with shared facilities and perform labor-intensive jobs to support families still arriving from overseas. Rural women endure physical demands that city life avoids: planting, harvesting, preserving food, hauling water, and caring for livestock. Their days begin before sunrise and stretch until long after dusk, their lives tied directly to the land. All these experiences reveal the diversity of women's realities in the 1910s, shaped by race, class, region, and opportunity. Despite the challenges, all these groups contribute to the nation's growth and resilience. Everything changes in 1917 when the United States enters World War I. Factories shift to wartime production, demanding more workers than ever before. Women step into roles previously closed to them, assembling munitions, operating heavy machinery, driving ambulances, and managing clerical work for government agencies. Uniformed women serve as nurses near the front lines, providing medical care in crowded field hospitals where the sounds of artillery echo through canvas walls. Their service transforms public perception of women's capabilities, revealing strength, skill, and leadership. Newspapers publish photographs of women in uniform, standing beside machines or marching in formation, reshaping the nation's understanding of gender roles. With men deployed overseas, women manage farms, businesses, and entire households. Their expanded responsibilities shift cultural expectations, fueling momentum for political rights. The war becomes a turning point that alters the trajectory of the decade, setting the stage for a transformation long in the making. By the decade's end, the momentum is undeniable. Women's contributions in factories, hospitals, and public service spark national discussions about their rights as citizens. Suffrage leaders organize marches, publish newspapers, lobby lawmakers, and endure arrests for peaceful protest. Their persistence gains traction. States gradually approve women's voting rights, building toward a national change. In 1919, Congress passes the 19th Amendment, and although its ratification completes in 1920, the movement's triumph belongs to the women of the 1910s who lived, worked, struggled, and persevered through a decade defined by both hardship and progress. The closing years of the 1910s carry the quiet intensity of a nation shifting under its own weight. Women stand at the threshold of a new era, shaped by the labor of millions whose names never appear in history books, but whose daily endurance built the foundation for generations that followed. Their world was demanding, restricted, and unequal, yet filled with strength, resilience, and determination. And as the decade fades into memory, the story of women in the 1910s remains a testament to the power of ordinary lives that changed an entire country.